Hello, and welcome to PoliticOly. Thanks for tuning in. It's July 5th, 2020, and this is episode 18. With the Washington state primary election coming up fast on August 4th, I will keep doing my best to bring you fresh content on everything from local protests and movement organizing to candidate interviews and ways for you to plug in to local politics and make a difference. Ballots go out on July 15th, only 10 days away. Please go online to votewa.gov to check your registration status. It just takes 30 seconds, so just make sure your address is updated and you are good to go for the election. Today I've got a local news roundup, a couple of educational links to highlight, and then my interview with Thurston County Commission candidate Carolina Mejia. You can find previous interviews in the description below, including last week's with Johnny Mead for State House of Representatives, Mary Ellen Biggerstaff, also for State House, and Rory Summerson for County Commission. Next up, I'll bring you an interview with Joshua Collins for the U.S. House of Representatives in the 10th District. That's Denny Heck's seat that he is vacating. So subscribe to catch that next week, and also comment with questions you'd like me to ask or any other comments you may have about the show or the news or politics. And I'm always looking for folks to interview or contribute or to PoliticOly in some other way, so if you are interested in that, you can email me at politicoly@gmail.com. If you attend a public event or protest you'd like to report on, you can send in audio or video commentary and I'll play it on an upcoming show. All right, let's move on to local news. On the screen now is a memorial. This photo was by Shauna Sowersby on Twitter, and this is at Westlake. So rest in peace to Summer Taylor, who was killed in the struggle for justice in the Black Lives Matter movement in Seattle. She was injured on Friday night and passed away last night. So rest in peace, and just my best wishes go out to all of her family and friends. And again, that photo was by Shauna Sowersby. And this is an article in the Associated Press about that incident, about the woman who passed away. It was a horrifying car attack in Seattle where a terrorist drove their car the wrong way up an on-ramp, around police barricades, also around cars that had been parked to protect the protesters. And he got around all of that and sped through a crowd who was trying to get away, and they were on the shoulder there when they got hit. 2 protesters were hit, Summer Taylor, who passed away yesterday, and Diaz Love, who is in serious condition at Harborview Medical Center. The video is going around, so you can find that if you want. But what I want to focus on is what this thread here is about, which is a pattern of right-wing extremists using cars as weapons against protesters, and the police covering for them, and framing it as the protesters' fault for being on the roadway, as if it were some kind of accident. And there's a link to this thread so you can take a look at this. This is numerous incidences. Moving on, this is a tweet by Drew Hendricks, who was a cop watcher in the Olympia area some years ago, and does public records requests and things like that. So, and his Twitter is DRIMCALBAN. And he says, quote, "The people were literally over the lane separator in the ramp wedge, out of the drivable surface. Both were moving towards safety when struck by a car moving the wrong direction." upstream ramps need closure. And as I had mentioned, the road, I-5, had been blocked off by the police. There have been protests like this in the past where Black Lives Matter movement folks have taken I-5, and so the police know what's going on. They have blockaded the freeway, and these people were exercising their First Amendment rights, and this person was able to get around that by going up a wrong way on ramp. So definitely a vector for danger that we obviously need to be aware of going forward. What I'll say is that just please be as safe as possible by always being aware of the potential for vehicular assault. And this is a problem that will continue, and organizers will need to take it seriously and make sure that they have plans and are encouraging everyone to be aware of this at all times. And this is going to need to be a conversation in organizing communities on improving our strategies for stopping this and preventing this from happening again. My heart goes out to the victims and their families and the other protesters who were traumatized by the attack, and I wish Diaz the best in their recovery. And I will post links to the crowdfunding pages in the description, so if you can support those efforts, you can find those links below. This is a group that's come together to organize auctions of local artwork to benefit Black Lives Matter related organizations. They called it Rep Art Rations, an art auction to benefit Black Lives Matter. It's got 640 members now, so it's going well. They said that they raised $440 in the first round of auctions, and there's going to be a bunch more coming up. So you want to go ahead and follow this group on Facebook and keep an eye, because there's going to be a whole bunch of artwork coming up that we haven't even seen yet. So, and if you have artwork that you would like to auction to benefit a Black Lives Matter organization, this could be a potential group that could help you with that. So take a look at that. I wanted to highlight an article in Liberation News. That's the news webpage of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, a national party, but this article is focused on Washington State. It's titled, "Cops in Washington Defy New State Police Reform Law with Impunity," by Mario Carbonell from June 28th. And it just highlights the Manuel Ellis case in Tacoma and some other local cases, and talking about how I-940 just went into effect January 1st, 2020, but we've already had dozens of, there it is, 24 violations of I-940 already, and at least 30 potentially, and that just again went into effect January of this year. So there is I-940 theoretically increased transparency and independent investigation and all these other rules that were supposed to reduce police violence, but they're not just going to voluntarily implement everything in good faith, right? And we can't expect them to. And so they're going to find ways of saying, okay, well, I had my buddy's agency over here review it, and I'm going to pretend they're not my buddy, so we're calling that an independent investigation. And so we are going to need to keep pushing and enforcing I-940. So everyone in Washington should really catch up on exactly what was in I-940 And so we can hold law enforcement in Washington state accountable using that law that's already on the books. And no, it's not enough, and we need to keep pushing for all these other new policies like defunding and demilitarizing and all these other policies. But we also should remember that we were able to pass I-940 by initiative into law, and so we should use that as a legal precedent in what way that we can. A story from elsewhere in Washington. This one is from Selah, which is Yakima County. And this is one where the city administrator there, I think it's Don Wayman, right? Anyway, the city administrator there was threatening to fine a family $5,000 and threatening them with up to a year in jail for doing sidewalk chalk on the public road with "I can't breathe" and these Black Lives Matter and these other messages. And basically just this city administrator has a history of offensive statements. He called Black Lives Matter a group, quote, devoid of intellect and reason. But then he also said they were neo-Marxist. So either he doesn't know what Marxism is, he doesn't know what intellect or reason are, or he's a bigoted liar, or all of the above. Not terribly surprising, given that he also doesn't understand the First Amendment. But the problem is he's the city administrator there. And can we just stop having these horrible, unelected, authoritarian city managers and administrators? We need to press city council candidates and city councilors in every city that has this system of unelected managers to eliminate those anti-democratic positions. In Olympia, it's called the city manager. His name's Jay Burney. And basically, it's just an unelected position that has a lot of control over local police and things like that, where folks may think that the city council is the one controlling all of these departments, but in a lot of cases it's actually the unelected city manager or city administrator. So and this is just another example of that. Let's take a look at some updates from La Resistencia Northwest, a page that I have shared before on Facebook here. They did a couple of recent actions that I wanted to highlight. So this one is a post about Naomi. I'll quote here. Quote, "Meet Naomi. She's a young woman from Congo being detained inside the Northwest Detention Center, and she demands to be free. As the conditions inside Northwest Detention Center continue to worsen, those inside continue to build power and voice their demands. Join us this month in highlighting different people who are detained inside the NWDC in Tacoma, Washington, Puyallup land. Join us this month in writing, calling, and tweeting for every person who is bravely deciding to go public and share their stories with us, deciding to risk the retaliation inside for fighting for their rights. It's time to hashtag shutdown NWDC and hashtag free them all now." And it continues. So you can go ahead, and I would just follow their page because they have continuous updates about the movement to shut down the Northwest Detention Center, which is the name of the ICE, or Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, prison that's in Tacoma, and it's run as a private prison. So when you see these news articles about family separations and the horrible conditions in ICE and things like that, there's a local connection as well. It's in Tacoma. It's called Northwest Detention Center, and we need to get it shut down. The other thing I wanted to highlight on their page really quick, though, was they had an action with kites and speakers and things like that. And so the kites represent forms that the detainees will make complaints about their conditions and report abuse and things like that. And basically they just get ignored, because it's run as a private prison. There's no accountability and so on. And so this was a solidarity event where people went out and flew kites and posted a bunch of supportive messages on the fence. Border Patrol Pinata guy here. Chingala Migura. And so I just want to highlight this because I want to thank everyone who went out and supported the immigrants there. And they deserve to be free and they deserve reparations. But in the meantime, they deserve our solidarity. So again, just thank you to everyone who's been contributing to that effort. And if not, please consider doing so in some way. Here are some flyers for yesterday's 4th of July events, and one they called 4th of July, which is awesome. If anyone was able to attend and wants to share a report back on PoliticOly, let me know. I can't report on all of the local events. There's just too many. So, I just highlight what I can, but there's been really good flyers, and like this one, that's a great design. And so just wanted to highlight some of this flyers for the events. A lot of people came out in cities across the Northwest and really across the country on July 4th. I like calling it 4th of July. That's a good one. And so just shout out to everyone who came out. I didn't make it out to these events yesterday. So if you did and you want to report on it, just like I said, let me know. PoliticOly@gmail.com. And same if you have flyers you want me to share on the show, feel free to send them in and I will put them up. Next, I wanted to highlight a call to action by Mary Ellen Biggerstaff, who I've interviewed on the show. You can find the link to that below. But this tweet is with regard to the upcoming eviction crisis. She says, quote, "We need state and community protection for renters before August. A massive wave of evictions will probably hit Washington next month." And a link to a Stranger article about that. So thank you to Mary Ellen for highlighting the housing crisis that is coming up. I've also seen Johnny Mead post about that as well, and it's not surprising that the socialist candidates are ahead of the curve on the issues that really directly impact the working class. So take some time to lift up the socialist candidates that are running to represent you. And really, we need to push for immediate action to protect people from being thrown out in the middle of a pandemic right now, because this crisis is here and our government has so far completely failed to address it. I want to remind my viewers that while it's important to contribute to the national conversation about justice struggles and support people who have suffered under the police state around the country, it's also important to learn about the justice struggles in our own communities and keep the movement for justice going on in those cases as well, long after they are out of the headlines. For example, Andre and Bryson, who survived an attempted murder by Olympia police officer Ryan Donald, have not gotten any justice in the 5 years now since they were shot. Over 5 years now. I've been speaking out for justice for Andre and Bryson since the day after they were shot. Here's a photo from a Black Lives Matter march in 2016 as an example. This is their mom, Crystal. There's me in the background helping to hold that sign for them. And I'll keep speaking up until Olympia Police Department no longer has the power to murder, injure, or paralyze anybody ever again. Don't let any Olympia leaders act like they care about black lives when they've not fought for or achieved accountability for killer cops in their own jurisdictions. The current council isn't going to do it. They've made that clear. We need to elect many more city councilors who will fight for justice and not ignore the racists in our local police departments so they can continue to terrorize our communities. The time to prepare for 2021 city council races is right now, before the ruling class chooses your leaders for you. If you know folks who are real community leaders who are accountable to the people, encourage them to run for office, and if they'd like my help, let me know. This is a statement posted on the webpage of Sins Invalid, which is a disability justice group. And I just wanted to highlight this. You can take a look at the link below to read through the whole statement and the demands. And I encourage you to do that because we need to be pushing elected representatives and candidates and potential candidates to meet these demands, so they're important. And there's a link here. You can download a PDF with these demands, action points, and a graphic. So they make it real easy to go ahead and download that PDF and follow those action steps. Yeah, contacting information for our representatives and the governor and so on. And this is from the Chaplain Thompson family and accomplices, as it says here. This is a statement posted on, Black Lives Matter Seattle is a group, is an original Black Lives Matter group in Seattle. They formed in 2014. So one thing when you look up these social media accounts, say you're in Olympia like me and you're only sort of following along what's going on in Seattle and you want to tune in, but you're not on the ground in Seattle, right? And so you don't have firsthand knowledge of maybe which organizations are legitimate or which ones are new or which ones just are grifting or whatnot. So, and you look them up and you just want to, I want to follow everything in Seattle. So you start clicking everything from Seattle that looks like it's a protester group. But there's problems with that because sometimes you have these new groups that pop up that may not have the history in the community or the accountability in the community that make them a source of information that you want to follow. And so that's why I highlight that, because this one started in 2014 and they have a web page as well with updates. So that's one to follow in Seattle. And I'll just quote from their tweet here. Quote, "If you were brutalized or attacked by Seattle Police Department and or SPD threatened you when you were peacefully protesting between May 30th, 2020 and now, please contact us immediately. Working on 1 or 2 class action lawsuits against the city of Seattle." So if you were involved in Seattle there, go ahead and contact them if you have such information to help with those class action lawsuits. And I will update you all on that if I hear more in the future. I want to highlight a couple upcoming events now. Pardon me. This one is Justice for Yvonne McDonald Next Step. It's on July 10th and it's a court solidarity event. So you can find the link to that below so you can read the whole statement. But if you would like to, and that's in Chehalis where the lawsuit against Thurston County has been filed. So only a limited number of people will be let into the courtroom, of course, with distancing and all that. So, but there will be a court support event with people gathered outside in support, in solidarity with Justice for Yvonne McDonald. So take a look at that if you can make it. If you can't, there's another event here in Lacey called Unite Our Cities. Olympia and Lacey come together, which I thought it was a great idea. And that is Friday, July 10th, 4 to 10 p.m. They are marching from Martin and Marvin down to Slater-Kinney Road. And so, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that is going on as well. This one is every other Tuesday, Olympia Surge, which is showing up for racial justice. They are doing something called the Action Hour every other Tuesday. And the next one is July 14th, and it'll be 12 to 1 p.m. And basically, from what I understand, it's a Zoom chat, and you call in, and then they have action steps that you can take right there while you're on the Zoom call, like clicking to sign a petition, or sending an email comment to a city councilor, or something like that. And they will have, says last week at their action hour, they made 30 calls, sent 100 emails, signed 30 petitions, and raised $500 for the Chaplain Thompson family. And the next one's coming up on July 14th. They'll have new action steps with different goals there, and donations and so on. So petitions and everything like that. So they just make it really easy for folks to take those steps. And it's easy for all of us to get caught up in following along on the news and jumping from one thing to the next without taking the time to send those emails and letters and signing those petitions. And it's important we take the time to go ahead and do that. So thanks to Surge Olympia for making it easy for us. This is a educational link I wanted to share by Black Agenda Report book forum called Radicalize Your Summer, an A to Z reading list. And so if you are wanting to pick up a book or two to educate yourself a little bit this summer, here is a list with a ton of them and some really good suggestions in here. So take a look. And I've read a few of these, but I have not read the majority. So there's a lot of info in here for me as well. And you can find the link below so you can take a look through that on your own and take a look at the links to the books. The podcast recommendation for the week is called Delete Your Account, and you can find them at the link below and on Twitter at DeleteURACCT. This episode, titled Hope is a Discipline, contains a great interview with abolitionist, author, and activist Mariame Kaba at Prison Culture on Twitter. And so this is a good interview, but they also have a really good library of episodes here. So take a look at Delete Your Account. This is a thread on Twitter by Zoe Samudzi, who's an author, and they talk about some of the problematic aspects of the reform efforts by newly elected progressive district attorneys around the country, such as Chesa Boudin and Larry Krasner. And you can follow the link to read all the details and the response in the thread here, but basically they had announced this initiative along with Sean King here and others, and they're calling it a Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation Commission. But that is a term that comes from the process after South African apartheid, where they had that commission to try to work out reparations and restorative justice there. And so Zoe goes into a whole bunch of reasons why that is problematic. And there were a lot of issues with the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission that I didn't even know about a lot of this history. So I've got more reading to do myself. But basically the point, and here's my response. I had said, in my opinion, if we want to call something a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, it should include prosecutorial power and a blank check for reparations. This project is not that. And that's no surprise if you follow along with the history of projects that Sean King has been a part of. A lot of times they sound great at first, and a lot of people donate, and then they fizzle out and he moves on to the next thing. But more importantly than that is really just the overall effort by district attorneys to get elected on a platform of holding law enforcement accountable, and then when they get elected, they soften up and do more like minor reform oriented things and public relations oriented things. And so, without making any judgment on, Boudin or Krasner specifically, it's just generally important for us to sharpen our critical thinking skills when it comes to these efforts and to really look at the fine print and figure out what is the catch, because there usually is one. That's it for news this week. You will find all the links below, and I do hope you take a look because that is a ton of good information in there. If you've got a story, link, article, video, or anything else you'd like me to share on a future episode, you can comment or email me. If you appreciate this local content, the best ways you can help support me are to like the video, comment, subscribe, and share. If I keep getting views, I'll keep doing the show. There's no money involved. It's just a volunteer effort. So thank you for all of your support, and I would love to keep growing the show and bringing you additional content and interviews and all of that. So help me to do that. Now, for this week's interview, let's meet Carolina Mejia, who's running for Thurston County Commission, District 1. Hello and welcome to PoliticOly. It's July 1st, and I'm here with Carolina Mejia for Thurston County Commission. So if you would go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you are running for County Commission.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Carolina Mejia, and I'm running for Thurston County Commission in District 1. And I decided to run for this position because I wanted there to be a change. I've been working for the county since 2015, and I realized that the decisions that were being made were not only affecting me as an employee, but also as a resident. It was affecting all the residents, and not too many people paid attention. And I was one of the people guilty of not really paying attention until one day I was like, wait, they do that? And I started paying closer attention, and I realized, oh my gosh, there needs to be a change in our county government. I thought about this decision for 2 years. I spoke with family, I spoke with friends, and I finally decided, okay, now is the time. So here I am, 2 years later, and in the middle of a pandemic, but we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just make a quick disclaimer here. I work for Thurston County, but this interview is entirely personal and opinion and completely unrelated to that. So with that disclaimer out of the way, we'll move on. So we've had commissioners with experience in law enforcement and some other areas in the county, but I'm not sure if we've had one with experience working with immigration law and some of the other things from your prior experience. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience and how that would help you as a county commissioner?
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about myself. I immigrated from Honduras when I was years old with my family. We moved to a small rural town in Tennessee. And from there, many children of immigrants, I was the one interpreting for my family. And pretty soon I was interpreting for other members of the community. And that got me very involved with the immigrant communities and organizations, local organizations throughout Tennessee, seeing what I could do to help improve, just laws and talking with legislators. And that's where my activism really got fired up. I went to college in Memphis, Tennessee, where I graduated with a bachelor's in business administration. During that time, my family moved up to Washington State, and I visited Thurston County. Was Olympia, and I fell in love with this place. So I decided to come to law school over here, and so I enrolled at the University of Washington School of Law, and I attended for a year and a half. But due to financial reasons and having a baby, I couldn't move forward. It wasn't feasible for me economically. So I made the hard decision to leave. And I joined a law firm up in Seattle, and they did immigration law, and they also did personal injury. During that time, I was a law clerk, and then I did U visas, T visas, and asylum cases. And I slowly moved into more family cases as I became the office manager. And I managed that office for a couple of years, and then I got tired of the commute. Olympia to Seattle every day gets pretty tiring, and so I I accepted the job at Thurston County Superior Court, where I've worked there since 2015. So I feel like I bring a diverse set of my background is very diverse in what I've done. I have a strong background in finance, and I also have a strong background when it comes to the policies and knowing the interdepartmental workings of the county. So I feel it's very important during this pandemic to know what's going on, because whoever gets elected will need to hit the ground running.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that I hear from people more than anything else with regard to county government is they just want it to function, and they want they want a county commission that is responsive to people and functions and gets things done and makes things better. And I agree with you that your experience as a county employee is important there. So um, moving on though, I guess with everything going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and the popular uprising against systemic racism and police brutality, and what do you take from this movement, and how would that impact your policy?
So I've been really impressed. I've been really happy to see that younger people are getting out there and getting heard, because this is not something new for people of color. I It's been going on for 50 years and nothing much has really changed. I come from the South, and this is a common occurrence. And Washington State, we come over here with this thought that we are more progressive, but yet it still exists. It's still an issue here too. So in terms of, will it change my whole outlook in life? No, because it's things that I've already experienced before in my life. And, I really, I have a complete mindset of what I want to do with the budget, especially as we see right now that the rest of the county departments got cut, except the sheriff's department. They didn't get cut. And everyone else is already working on pennies. They're furloughing their employees. They're trying to see how they're going to make these cuts without having this long-term effect on each of their own departments. But yet, this department that just got 500,000, over the budget a couple months ago, now they don't get a budget cut, and we're seeing that effect in the county and how the community feels about that. And I feel it's really important to address that because people want answers. They want to know where their tax dollars are going. And so I think it's really important that, once we get someone in there, that these issues are addressed.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I guess there's also the issue of the new courthouse complex, and that was going to be a big ticket item on the ballot this April, I believe, and then that was taken back off due to the shutdown and all the budget issues coming up. What's your take on that? And yeah, what's your take on that project?
So, due to the Judicial Code of Ethics and Conduct, I am not allowed to answer that since I am such
Right, right.
a
Apologies.
it's okay. But yeah, I'm not allowed to speak on that project necessarily, just because it does fall very
That
close.
that does make sense. Yeah, apologies.
Yeah. Uh,
So, but I think your previous answer does also applies to things in a more general way.
yeah.
So,
But
and
again, if elected, it's something that I think it's important to listen to the constituents and see what the community actually wants in terms of uh, if there's a building or not, or the location.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good segue to something that I had seen on your webpage with regard to making the county commission more, I forget what the term on the webpage was, but basically more accessible to folks. What are your ideas on how to achieve that?
Yeah, so I feel like county government is one of those offices where I talk to people. They're like, "Who is a county commissioner and what do they do?" There's not a lot of information, and so that leads to problems. I feel like because meetings currently are Thursdays at 2, and if you have a full time job, 8 to 5, you're having to ask off time to go to one of these meetings. And it's not really accessible for most people. People can't just leave work and go to these meetings to give their opinions on issues that they care about. And I feel like that's a huge roadblock to start off with. Another thing that I want to do is provide childcare services for the courts. And right now, people cannot go to court. Sometimes they can't go into their court hearing because they have children. This is not only indicative in a criminal matter, but also in family matters where there's sensitive matters that are being talked about. So, the judges don't want children listening to some of the issues going on. And people don't know what to do there with their kids. They don't have a child care provider to take care of their kids, outside of the court system. So they need they need that access to justice. I really believe in that we need to have access to justice. And that's just one of the ways that we can provide that.
That's a great point that I have not yet heard from any of the other county commissioners or candidates. So that's a great idea. I agree with you on that.
As a mother, I feel like just it's things that I think about. I have two younger daughters, and I'm lucky enough that I have my parents and my in-laws that are able to take care of my children. Like right now, while I'm doing these interviews or while I'm out. But not many people have that accessibility here. They don't have family nearby, or they don't have the resources to pay for someone to come take care of their children. So it's something I feel like that we really need to look into and to provide.
And that's kind of an example of how inequality, systemic inequality, plays out on a personal level,
Mhm.
and nobody maybe was intending to create a system that was unequal, or based on access to childcare, but that's the system that exists, and unless we figure out how to change that in a way that gives people equal access, that inequality exists.
Yes.
So let's see. Um, One thing that I encourage people to do when they are researching candidates is to look up their record on the PDC, or Public Disclosure Commission webpage. And when I took a look at yours, one group that stood out that I didn't know is called PRISM. Do you want to talk about what that is,
Yes.
for
I am
folks?
more than happy to. Yeah.
Great.
So Prism Consultants, that is actually my consultant. And he was currently in an article on how the Democratic Party is biased against Black consultants. So I was really proud of him for him to be there. And so that's who Prism is. It's my consultant, Rial Johnson.
No, that's great. And that, I think that's a great example of looking at the PDC page and why that's important,
Yeah.
because you can look at and see something like that and then go look it up, which in this case I did. I hadn't heard that before. And so I went and looked it up, and I saw Rial, who I recognized from his work on the I-940 campaign. And so anyway, just wanted to throw that out there for the audience.
I do believe
Um,
it's important. Yeah, I agree with you.
so what are, let's see. Um, I'll give up the floor to you, maybe, for is it, what else is in a big major part of your campaign that we haven't talked about yet that you would like to tell folks about?
So I'm bringing a lot of issues on my campaign. One of them is affordable housing. And these are just lived experiences that I've had, and then also communications with, just talking with the community and seeing what is really going on. And I feel like a community member, I can relate to a lot of the same issues. Like for us, it was trying to buy a house, and not being able to, being first time homeowners and trying to even look for a house that we can afford here in Thurston County. And it's really unfortunate that we're losing a lot of residents because they can't afford the rent, because the rent is up in the 2000s. And it's way more than what our biggest employer, which is the state and JBLM, can pay sometimes. And it's really important. I also think it's very important that we work with local jurisdictions to address our houselessness issues, and also our environmental issues, because in a way they're all interconnected, and it's really important that we work. I feel there needs to really be a strong partnership when it comes to that.
Yeah, I agree. And do you have any specific policy ideas with regard to how we would go about addressing affordability in the housing market here?
Yes, first off, I feel like we already need to speak with the organizations that have boots on the ground, and that are looking into these issues and seeing, where we can actually build more housing that won't have a detrimental effect on our environment. Second of all, we need to look into all those luxury condos that are currently being built and why they're allowed to be built. Like, why are we not allowing more people or more developers to build affordable housing, but we're allowing them to build these luxury condos that, y- who is going to buy them? Like, are we? It's basically gentrifying our community, and that's unacceptable.
Thank you for that. So one other thing I saw on your webpage, in your the environment piece on your platform page, I'll quote, respect and justice for all residents to include sovereign land, communities of color, and the aging and disabled population. Acknowledge and respect treaties and agreements of Indigenous people. So I wanted to thank you for that statement and then ask if you want to elaborate on that and how you would approach doing that as a county commissioner.
Yes. So currently we have contracts with the Nisqually Valley, and I think it's very important that we keep upholding those contracts and make sure that we have open communication with the Indigenous peoples that technically are owners of this land.
Absolutely. Um, and do you want to elaborate maybe on you said with regard to homelessness,
Mhm.
you want to increase the interjurisdictional collaboration, basically, right, with the county and the municipalities. Um, do you have any specific um, policy ideas for how the county can deal with this? Because I think a lot of people look at this issue and are thinking about in the cities,
Yeah.
right? And so what would the county's role be there?
And so that's, I feel like it's a huge piece of misinformation that's going around, that it's only a city issue. It's not just a city issue. It's a countywide issue that's affecting both the cities and the counties. And it really is affecting our environment. When there's trash left in the place, or sewage dumped in our water resources. So one of my favorite organizations currently that I've been looking a lot into is Don Quixote, and they built all the tiny houses. So working with nonprofits, again, who have boots on the ground and they know what's going on, they're already offering those resources, supporting them and expanding them. I would love to expand Don Quixote to include families that are struggling. They can't find a home, or they can't find a place to pay rent. City Gate Ministries is another one organization that has these amazing program where I think they're building trailers for families, and after 3 months of savings, they can, it's theirs. So just partnering, I feel like that's so important. Instead of opening new programs, look for the programs that are already out there, that they're working, and expand them.
think that's a great idea, and especially I like that you brought up Quixote Village because I don't really hear about that too much anymore. After that was, fought for and established, and it was really such a struggle for years to get that established, moving around to the church parking lots and just constant struggle with the city and so on. And now it's really been developed into something pretty fabulous and has come a long way. And so I agree that that's an organization locally that's done a lot of work and learned a lot, and now is a model that we can look to. And so we should appreciate that resource in our.
I agree. No, I feel it's always important to look at places that are already doing the work instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. See what's already working for organizations that are out there, and seeing how we as a county can support and help and expand. I feel it's so important to expand on something that is working.
Yeah. So I guess talking about your campaign a little bit here, you just had your campaign kickoff, right? So tell us about that, and if you have any events coming up or volunteer opportunities, or if someone wants to plug in, what's coming up.
Yeah, so we're kicking off in July, so it's going to be a busy month for us. Yeah, my kickoff was June 30th, and it was very great. We had over 49 people that were there, and we had an amazing musician come and play some music for us, and it was just such a lovely event. It was heartwarming to see how the support of the community, really, that's what it comes down to, how much the community supports you. And it really, really was seeing how people have become involved in several ways. I for events coming up for the rest of the month. Let's see. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. I was in an interview earlier. So for events coming up for volunteering, we have phone banking that we're doing. I think we have it on our Facebook page. We're doing it Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And we are training people, so that's usually where the biggest pull is. Unfortunately, since we can't go door knocking, we are relying much more on social media and just phones and texting. So if you would like to phone bank with us, let me know. We usually make a party out of it and try to make it as fun as possible, because it's definitely a grueling process. Another way, I think, way you can volunteer is we're going to be doing some sign waving events coming up, and we'll have the dates posted up, and we'll be dividing. We'll be safe. We'll be providing masks and hand sanitizer and gloves. That way we can all still be safe, and we'll be social distancing, which I think is very important. So that's another way. If you would like to get out and breathe some fresh air while waving one of my signs, I would love to see you there. And another one, we're going to be having several events. So if you keep looking at my Facebook page, we'll be posting them up as they come up. We'll be probably having a couple more fundraisers advertised, and I would love to see you there. Love you to participate. I think it's important that thank you for broadcasting local campaigns, because not too many people pay attention to these campaigns. I know it's a huge election year, and a lot of people are focused on those congressional races and presidential races, but these local races matter too, because they're the ones making the decisions when it comes to a lot of the issues that impact people day to day. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I always tell people that your vote is it has a bigger impact proportionally when you vote in these local elections, because the turnout is lower, and so and there's just less people overall, and so your vote has a larger impact,
It
even
does. Yeah.
politically. And then also, by the way, about your pages, I'll go ahead and link those in the description of the video when this is posted as well.
And it's carolinaforthurston.com. And you can read more about my bio or my platform issues. And if you have any questions, you can email me at info@carolinaforthurston.com.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you for running. I appreciate it. And thanks for coming on the show and talking to me. This will.
All right. Thank you to Carolina Mejia for that interview, and look forward to following up in the future, hopefully after a successful primary. And you, again, can find more interviews that I've done with candidates who are currently running on my YouTube page. I encourage you to go to PoliticOly here and subscribe. And I haven't been live here for a couple of weeks, but I do plan to be doing live shows again potentially in the future, so stay tuned for that. And future interviews next week will be Joshua Collins, who is running for the 10th District U.S. House of Representatives. So get in your questions for Joshua in the comments below. You can find me on Twitter at Oli Stewart. That's my main account, and then at OliPolitic, which is just show updates. And again, go ahead and check out my previous episodes for a lot more local content and interviews and more. So thanks for tuning in, and much love and solidarity to everyone participating in the movement in any way, whether you are someone who can be out there in the streets or whether you are contributing in some way from home or any other way. And just appreciate you all, and have a good week.